everyone, it's Sarah and welcome to my crochet channel. I'm so excited. Guess what I just found out? Scrunchies are back! Now I had tons of scrunchies in the 80s and 90s and I still have some of those. But today's video I'm going to show you how to make just a basic crochet scrunchie, and then I'm also going to show you how to make a fancy one and then a fancy one with beads. This is a free crochet pattern on my blog, and you can find that blog link down in the notes underneath this video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to make a basic scrunchie, and then I'm going to show you how to add a ruffle or a lace edge to this basic scrunchie, and then I'm also going to show you at the same time how to add some beads of your choice, and it's really simple. You're going to need some yarn. And here I've got some purple sparkly, and this is the Karen Party in the silver. And these two are some that I had on hand, and they're actually a number 1, and I doubled them together and stitched with 2 strands. So there's lots of possibilities for yarn. For today's demonstration, I'm going to be using this pretty purple sparkle, and it is the Karen Party, and it is a worsted weight number 4 yarn, which is my favorite yarn to make these out of. Like I said, if you use a thinner yarn, you're going to want to double that up and stitch with 2 strands. This one is worsted weight number 4 with just 1 strand. We're going to be stitching today with our H hook, and the H is a 5.00 millimeter crochet hook. You're going to need some hair bands, and these are my favorite, the Goody Ouchless, because there's no metal or anything on them. It's just a round band, and they're secured with some sort of glue, and they're nice and sturdy, and they work perfect. Now there are other different sizes, bigger and smaller, but this is the size we're going to be using for today's demonstration. And then you're also going to need some beads if you want to add some beads. And you can, here's butterflies and hearts. You can even add buttons if you can get the needle through the hole. And I'm going to be using some of these pony beads in a rainbow of colors today. But you can use any bead as long as you can get your needle through the hole, and any button as long as you can get your needle through your hole. And I think it would kind of be fun to mix and match the beads and come up with some really neat ideas. Oh, and don't forget, you'll need your scissors and a needle. To get started, you're going to want to put your yarn on your needle, thread it in there, and this yarn is connected to our skein. And I've already added some of the beads, but we're going to put the beads on first. And if you don't want beads on your scrunchie, then you can just skip this portion, because when we get started, it's all done the same. The only difference is you're going to need to push your beads up out of the way if you have beads on there. All right, so I've got my beads, and you're going to need about 15 to 17 beads. I always add an extra 1 or 2 just in case I'm off at the end. I don't want to have one of my little lace ruffles without a bead. Okay? All right, so now we've got all our beads on, and all 3 of the scrunchies, we begin the same way. I took my needle off. I'm going to grab my hair tie and put it on my crochet hook. I'm going to grab the yarn and pull it through, and I'm going around both those strands and just making a chain 1 just to get me up on the top of the band. I'm going to snug that down. I'm going to wrap just the working yarn around my hook and chain 3. And your working yarn is the yarn that's connected to your source, your ball or your skein or whatever you're working with. All right, now as we work, we're going to be pushing those beads out of the way. So if you're not using beads, you don't have to worry about them. We're going to yarn over. We're going to go through the hairband, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through the first 2, yarn over, and go through the second 2. Our chain 3 here counts as a double crochet, and then we're going to stitch 29 double crochets, so we have a total of 30. And it can be a little bit clumsy at first, but don't worry, you'll get it. And you can see I am stitching over that tail of yarn. And I'll do that for a few stitches. And then I'll let it go, and then I'll come back with my needle and weave that in. And you can see I'm pushing those beads forward as I work. So I'm going to stitch a total of 30 double crochets, counting my chain 3 around my hair band. So we're going to have a total of 30 double crochets, counting our chain 3. I've completed those 30 double crochets, counting my chain 3. Now, if you're making just a plain scrunchie, you can add as many double crochets as you would like if you want to make it more ruffly. I think I have 35 in this one, but I'm not sure. Alright, so when we get done with our last double crochet, we're going to join to the top of our chain 3. And if you were making this one, you'd go ahead and tie off and weave in your ends. But since we're making some like this, we're not going to do that. Now, if you're making one with the bead, you're going to only chain 2. If you're making one without the bead, you're going to chain 5. And with the bead, you chain 2, you push up a bead, and chain 3 more. So either way, you're making a chain 5. We're just adding the bead as we go. So if you're making one like this, you're going to chain 5, skip the next stitch, and single crochet in the next. If you're making one with the bead, we chain 2, we pulled a bead forward, and we did 3 more chains, we skipped the next stitch, and single crochet. So they really are the same, we're just splitting our chain 5 up to add our bead. Alright, so we're going to chain 2, we're going to pull up a bead, and chain 3. We're going to skip the next stitch and single crochet in the next. Now, if I was making one without the beads, I'd go ahead and chain 5. I would skip the next stitch and single crochet in the next. And then I would repeat that all the way around. But since I'm doing the beads, I'm going to chain 2, I'm going to pull my bead forward up to my hook, and then chain 3. Skip the next stitch and single crochet in the next. Chain 2, pull my bead forward, chain 3, skip the next stitch and single crochet in the next. Alright, and you'll notice your beads don't show on this side, but when you turn it over, then your beads pop out. Alright, let me go over this one more time just so that you understand. If you're making one like this with no beads, you're going to single crochet, chain 5, skip 1, single crochet in the next, chain 5, skip 1, single crochet in the next, all the way around. And that's what gives you that little loopy ruffle edge. And then if you're making one with the beads like I am, you're going to single crochet, chain 2, pull up your bead, chain 3, that gives you your chain 5, skip the next, and single crochet in the next. And we'll repeat this all the way around our scrunchie. So I've completed my scrunchie. Let me turn it over so you can see where the beads show up better. Got hearts and butterflies and pony beads in between. I've done my last one. You can see I've got a couple extra beads, and I do that just in case I make a mistake. I want to make sure every one of my loops has a bead in it. All right, so we're going to join back to that first single crochet with a slip stitch, and then we'll cut our yarn. And you can just take those beads off that are left over, put them back in your container. All right, so now we're going to weave this in. We tied that off. I'm going to grab my needle. And I'm just going to weave this in. One thing to remember is if this is going to be used a lot in your hair, you want to make sure that that weave-in is going to hold. So I go one way, then the other, and I make sure I'm on the back side so that it doesn't show through. And on this one, the beads are on the front. Alrighty. Alright, so let me cut that. And that's really, I mean, it's super easy to make a scrunchie, and if you want to make a plain one to go with every outfit, that's awesome. And you can make a ruffly one like this one, or you can make a ruffly one with beads. And if you'll notice, I've used all sparkly yarns because you know I love the sparkle. This one I'm going to wear because it matches my purple top today. So grab those yarn scraps, your hair bands, some beads, and get to town making yourself some new scrunchies, because they're back in style.